Yeah, it was originally from what was it
Florida? Or
yeah,
North
yeah,
Carolina?
yeah. It was he was from Florida. He was from
Yeah. Maybe some of the Gullah area. I don't know.
I don't know.
I hung out in the
Yeah.
Carolinas, and of course,
Yeah.
back then, music colleges and stuff like that try to break the South, especially the South, into different regions of stylings, you know, and that was like the Carolinas, and all that was called the Piedmont style of finger picking. And they did like a research, and they tried to say that the African people that were brought to Mississippi were from a different region, and so the music was different and stuff like that. But there was like so many like Mississippi John Hurt, you know.
Yeah, there were so many variables, so many outliers.
So but but he played in that ragtime style, and the only guy that approached him was Reverend Gary Davis.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, as far as virtuosity.
Oh yeah, yeah. And it was what's interesting for those of you who I hope are interested but don't know much about. And I mean, there was a brief moment in time where you could have divided things up into Piedmont and Delta and Texas and St. Louis and Kansas City and all that. And for purposes of, you know, alluding to particular groups of musicians, it's somewhat valuable. But what's interesting is when you go back and back and back, what happened was these different styles started in specific towns. There would be some guitar hero in a town, like Skip James, or
Benetonian.
Yeah. And other people would play like him because he was the guy. And then somebody from a neighborhood, Sunhouse, and then other people would hear about them in other towns, and they'd invite them to their town to play for dances, and so then that started spreading out and mixing. And then those guys started jumping on trains and going even further afield. And then one of the things that distinguishes Robert Johnson, aside from the fact that he was great, was that he was at the vanguard of the next generation of blues players who grew up with phonographs in the home.
Right.
So at that point, making distinctions between geographical areas became completely. Because you can hear, had Robert Johnson lived longer, I mean, he was digesting several different styles. You hear him emulating several heroes. You hear him emulating Tampa Red. You hear him emulating Lonnie Johnson. You hear and the more local stuff, the Mississippi guys. And all that stuff is starting to mix up into one ball of blues, which is, you know, most people who come across Robert Johnson think he was like the first guy, and he was kind of the next guy.
One of the last guys. Within a few years he would have been playing electric guitar. I'm sure. You know,
absolutely, just like his compadres.
Muddy Waters. And probably on up to Chicago. Plus, those guys, I never, of course, met Robert Johnson, but I've been so fortunate enough to have met his stepson.
Oh yeah.
And had a good session with him, Robert Lockwood Jr., who was also the musical director to Sonny Boy Williamson sometimes, and Little Walters, musical director at A&R, not A&R, but a studio musician for Chess Records, and then another guy that Robert hoboed with was Honey Boy Edwards, and I got to work with him a little bit, and got to bring him to town, Portsmouth a few times. And
Lockwood
was
in the Blues Festival, I remember.
Oh yeah, Lockwood was at the Blues Festival, and we brought him to town another time too. Yeah. And he did a workshop and all kinds of good stuff. But Honey Boy would say, man, we would just like hop a train, and we didn't care where that train was going, as long as it was leaving Mississippi. And Johnny Shines, another guy I did meet that also was very close with Robert Lockwood, but also was older and had hoboed a lot. That's what they call catching trains and riding the rails, hoboing. And there's a big difference between a hobo and a bum. They have a big difference, And they'd hobo it, and man, and Johnny Shines, he would go, because Shines was from Alabama, and Jim Crow stuck his ugly head, roared his ugly head everywhere, just like the new Jim Crow is roaring down. But especially in Mississippi. And Johnny Shines would go, man, Robert, if this next train we're catching, if it's heading back to Mississippi, I ain't going. Because that was pretty much the most lethal place to be. So this song is kind of about that. And